Hi everyone, tonight we're going to take a ride, well, not just any ride, but the kind you don't usually come back from. Imagine this, it's past midnight. The streets are so quiet you can hear your own footsteps echoing, and the only bus still running pulls up with a hiss of brakes that sound like a long sigh. Creepy enough. Oh, don't worry, gets better. And honestly, if you think you'd survive sitting alone on a midnight bus with a bunch of strangers, well, let's just say I don't like your chances. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. And hey, drop a comment with your location and time. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Now turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soft background music, and let's get started tonight. The story begins with a young man named Min, trudging down the dimly lit road, clutching his jacket tighter against the biting night air. The city was half asleep. Neon signs still buzzed faintly, but the streets were deserted. Not even stray dogs prowled the alleys at this hour. He had missed the earlier buses and cursed himself for working late, but when he finally saw the faint headlights of the midnight bus breaking through the fog, relief washed over him. The bus lumbered up like a great mechanical beast, its metal frame groaning with age. It wheezed to a stop, releasing a hiss of steam that coiled around Min's legs. For a moment, he thought he heard whispers within the mist, but he shook it off as tiredness. He climbed aboard, coins clinking in his palm, and immediately noticed how odd the inside looked. There were passengers, yes, but something about them was off. They sat stiffly in their seats, each one facing forward, hands neatly folded on laps. No one moved, no one spoke, and no one even looked up when he entered. Min glanced around, half expecting a nod or a bored glance, but the silence was total. Only the faint rumble of the engine broke the stillness. The driver, a wiry old man with deep lines etched across his face, gave Min a strange, unreadable look. His voice was rough when he finally spoke. "You sure you want to take this ride, boy? The last bus isn't for everyone." Min chuckled nervously, thinking it was just some old man's attempt at humor. He dropped the fare into the box, muttered thanks, and moved down the aisle. The seats creaked beneath him as he sat. That was the first sound he'd heard that felt real. From the window, the city rolled past slowly at first. Street lamps glowed dimly through the mist, casting pale orange halos that smeared across the glass. Min leaned his head back, telling himself he just needed rest. But no matter how he tried to settle, unease gnawed at him. His eyes drifted to the nearest passenger. It was a man in a teal cloak, head bowed as if asleep. But Min noticed something peculiar. The man's chest did not rise and fall. No breath fogged the glass near his face. He sat perfectly motionless, as though carved from wax. That was the first standard creepy event, the kind your mind explains away as just tired. But Min couldn't shake it. He turned his eyes forward, and that was when he spotted another detail, a scrap of parchment lying on the floor beneath the opposite row of seats. Strange, he thought, in a modern bus. When he bent down to glance at it, he realized it was covered in faded brown ink, written in looping strokes he couldn't decipher. The letters looked centuries old. The paper cracked and yellowed. That was the weird, unrelated detail, the kind that makes your stomach twist because it doesn't belong. Why parchment? Why here? Min shifted in his seat, trying to distract himself, and that was when the impossible began creeping in. A story unspooled in his head, as though whispered by some unseen voice. He saw a young woman stepping onto this very bus decades ago, clutching a basket of flowers. She never reached her stop. Instead, she was found in a ravine the next morning, body shattered, flowers scattered like a funeral wreath. The voice whispered, "She still rides, every night, looking for her stop." Min jerked upright, his skin crawling. He looked around, but the passengers sat frozen. No one had spoken. No one had even moved. The bus rattled on. Another impossible tale slid into his ears. He saw a man in leather boots, drunk and stumbling, waving down the midnight bus. He laughed too loudly, took a seat near the back and vanished before the dawn. All they found was his hat, lying on the cobblestones. "He never left the bus," the whisper said. "He rides forever." Still laughing, Min pressed his palms to his ears. He told himself he was imagining things. Tiredness, stress, whatever. But when he dared to glance at the reflection in the bus window, he saw something impossible. Rows of passengers stretching far deeper into the bus than there should have been. More faces than seats, faces upon faces, staring blankly back at him. The whispers rose again, forming the third impossible story. A young soldier, weary and bloodstained, boarded after the war. He told the driver he wanted to go home. No one ever saw him again. But every so often, a soldier still sits quietly by the window, uniform in tatters. Staring out into the night, Min's chest tightened. His heart pounded in his ears, louder than the engine's growl. He looked desperately toward the driver, but the old man's eyes were fixed on the road, hands gripping the wheel. Outside, the fog thickened. The city lights were gone, swallowed by a grey curtain. The streets they were driving now seemed unfamiliar, winding deeper into places Min didn't recognize. And then came the vague, ominous thought, can you guys get out of this, or are we all already too late? Min swallowed hard, trying to convince himself this was just another late-night ride. But something in the pit of his stomach told him, no, this was not normal. And this was not just another bus. The midnight bus had only just begun its journey. The engine groaned like some restless creature as the midnight bus lurched deeper into the fog. Min sat stiff in his seat, his eyes darting from the parchment scrap on the floor to the motionless passengers. Every instinct screamed that something wasn't right, but fatigue and stubborn logic tried to keep him calm. After all, it was just a bus. People took midnight rides all the time. He told himself that. He even repeated it like a mantra. But deep down, he knew this was not the usual last ride home. The driver cleared his throat suddenly, and Min almost leaped out of his seat. The man's voice was gravelly, like dry leaves scraped along stone. You don't look like the type to ride this late, the driver muttered. Eyes fixed on the winding road, Min hesitated, then forced a small laugh. Just worked too late. Had no choice. The driver's knuckles whitened against the steering wheel. Choice, he said softly. You'd be surprised how many who sit where you're sitting never had a choice at all. A shiver rippled down Min's spine. He wanted to ask what the old man meant, but the driver's silence that followed was heavier than the question. The kind of silence that warns you not to pry. The standard creepy event came quickly after. The driver tilted the rearview mirror down toward Min, almost too deliberately. Min looked up at the reflection and froze. The mirror didn't show him. It showed his seat, empty, just like earlier, except now it was closer, clearer. For a heartbeat, Min thought maybe he really wasn't there. He blinked, rubbed his eyes, looked again. Empty. Only the pale passengers around him remained, unmoving, their faces flat as masks. Min looked away quickly, his heart hammering. He muttered under his breath, I'm still here. I'm still here. But the doubt gnawed at him like a rat chewing wires, trying to distract himself. He shifted and noticed something odd again, the weird, unrelated detail. A faint smell of fresh earth drifted up from the seat cushion beneath him, sharp and cold, like a freshly dug grave. It didn't make sense. Bus seats smelled like old fabric and dust, not soil. The earthy scent clung stubbornly, refusing to be ignored. Before Min could process it, the whispers began again. This time, the impossible stories came not from the back, not from the passengers, but from the driver himself. His voice rasped low, as though speaking to no one in particular. Yet Min knew every word was meant for him. Long ago, the driver murmured, a girl boarded this very bus after curfew. Her parents warned her never to be out past midnight, but she laughed them off. She sat right where you are now. By the time dawn came, she hadn't returned. The next night, she was seen again, still waiting at the bus stop, still smiling, but never alive. Min clutched his knees, trying to steady himself. Impossible. Just another scary story. Right. He forced a shaky breath, but the driver's voice rolled on. There was a merchant once, heavy with coins, too greedy to walk home. He thought the last bus safer, but when he stepped off, no one saw him again. Only his purse turned up later, empty, dangling from the branch of a tree outside the graveyard. Min shut his eyes. He didn't want to hear more, but the final tale came anyway, cold as frost. A woman in white boarded once, veil hiding her face. She asked no questions, and no one dared ask her. She rode until the end, and when she finally left, she left behind only her shadow. The seats remember her. They still whisper her name. The air in the bus grew thick, suffocating. Min's throat tightened, and he felt sweat bead on his skin. Every fiber of his body screamed to get off, to pull the emergency cord, to run. But the bus just kept rolling forward, the driver silent once more, his shoulders rigid. Min glanced around. None of the passengers had moved. Not a blink, not a twitch. They were statues in a rolling tomb. Through the window, the streets looked wrong. The buildings leaned closer, shadows spilling across the glass like reaching fingers. Street signs blurred, unreadable. Min pressed his forehead against the cold window pane, hoping for some landmark, anything familiar, but all he saw was fog. The bus jolted suddenly, hitting a bump, and Min gasped. When he looked down, he noticed the parchment scrap from before had slid closer to his shoe. He leaned down cautiously, squinting at the faded writing. The letters twisted before his eyes, rearranging into words he could somehow read. "You are already on the list." Min recoiled, heart thundering, his breath shallow. He wanted to crumple it up, throw it away, but when he blinked, the parchment was gone. Just gone. And then, as if mocking him, a vague, unplaceable thought floated through his mind. "How much farther do you think this ride goes? Really, farther than you can survive?" He leaned back, trying to steady his shaking hands, but the truth pressed in on him like the fog outside. This wasn't just a ride. This was something else, something final. The driver adjusted his cap, eyes still locked on the road, and muttered once more, almost kindly, "I warned you, boy. The last ride isn't for everyone." The hum of the engine sank into Min's chest like a second heartbeat, steady and suffocating. He tried to tell himself he was just tired. That exhaustion was twisting the ordinary into something darker, but no amount of logic could explain the mirror, the parchment, or the driver's whispered tales. He swallowed hard and dared a glance behind him. The passengers sat in their rigid rows, still as statues. A man in a broad-brimmed hat, a woman clutching a bundle of cloth, a student with a satchel across his lap. Each had the pallor of faded parchment, their faces waxy and drained of life. None blinked, none shifted, none breathed. Yet Min swore he felt their eyes on him, like invisible needles prickling his skin. He whispered under his breath, "They're just asleep, just tired." But the words rang hollow in the heavy silence. One detail struck him suddenly, small but jarring. Every passenger's shoes were caked with dried mud, the same earth scent he'd smelled on his seat. It didn't make sense. The streets outside were paved, dry. Where could they have walked? The answer pressed at the edges of his mind, unwelcome, as if on cue. The air thickened with whispers, not from the driver this time, but from the passengers themselves. Their lips never moved, yet Min heard them, voices layered over one another, distant and overlapping, carrying stories too fragmented to understand. He leaned closer, straining to catch words. "I should not have boarded. The gates were already open. My mother still waits by the window." The voices bled into one another, endless testimonies of the lost. Min clamped his hands over his ears, but the whispers weren't sound. They crawled inside his skull, pressing against his thoughts. He bolted upright, heart racing. "Stop it! Stop!" he shouted. For the first time, every passenger turned their head in unison. The motion was stiff, mechanical, like puppets pulled by unseen strings. Dozens of empty eyes fixed on him. Min froze, his voice caught in his throat. Then, the man in the brimmed hat closest to the aisle moved. His neck cracked sharply as he tilted his head. His lips parted with a slow, unnatural stretch. A faint, dry whisper slid out. "You don't belong here." The others echoed him, voices overlapping in a dreadful chorus. "You don't belong here. You don't belong here. You don't belong here." Min pressed back against his seat, trembling. "I didn't choose this," he shouted. The woman clutching the bundle tilted her head toward him, her veil slipping to reveal that her bundle was not cloth at all, but the withered shape of a child's form wrapped tight, its hollow sockets peeking through. Her voice rasped, soft yet sharp as glass. "No one chooses." The bus jolted, throwing Min sideways. He grabbed the seat for balance, his pulse wild. The driver didn't turn, didn't react, didn't even blink. The road stretched endlessly into fog. Min's breath came in gasps. He forced himself to look away from the passengers, back toward the front, clinging to the hope that if he ignored them, they'd vanish. But something compelled him to glance down again at the seat across the aisle. Another scrap of parchment lay there, glowing faintly in the dim light. Against his better judgment, Min reached for it with shaking fingers. The letters formed clearly this time. "The dead ride in silence. If they speak to you, you are already counted among them." He dropped the paper as though it burned. His mouth went dry. The passengers hadn't moved again. They stared blankly forward, silent once more, as if the confrontation had never happened. But Min knew better. He had heard them. They had acknowledged him. And that meant he was no longer just a passenger. He was part of their story. The thought sent a chill through his bones. He clutched his chest, desperate for some anchor. But the silence pressed in, thick and unyielding. Even the hum of the engine seemed weaker now, fading under the weight of unseen voices. Then, faintly, like a cruel echo, he heard the child's voice again, this time inside his head. "You are sitting in my seat." Min squeezed his eyes shut, willing himself to wake, to break free, to escape. But when he opened them, the bus was still there, rolling endlessly through the fog. The driver's voice broke the silence at last, calm and steady. "Now you see why they keep quiet. Words bind. Once you speak to them, they know you." Min wanted to scream, to demand answers, to beg for release. But fear sealed his lips. He stayed silent, clutching the edge of his seat, praying that silence might save him. The driver chuckled dryly, a sound with no humor at all. "It's too late for prayer, boy. The list writes itself." The bus surged forward into the endless dark. The bus shuddered, brakes squealing like something alive and in pain. Min jolted forward, his hand slamming against the metal rail. The driver didn't announce the stop, didn't glance back. The bus simply slowed, groaning as if resisting its own movement. Fog pressed against the windows so thick it seemed solid. But as the bus crept to a halt, Min could just make out shapes outside an old signpost bent nearly in half, a rusted lamp flickering with a weak orange glow, and a cluster of shadowed figures waiting silently at the roadside. His stomach dropped. More passengers. The doors hissed open, though no one touched the controls. The figures outside stirred, dragging themselves into motion. Min's first instinct was to shout, to beg the driver not to let them on, but his throat seized. Some deep instinct warned him drawing attention here was a mistake. They boarded slowly, one by one. Min counted them without meaning to. 5, 6, 7. Each wore the remains of clothing from different eras, different lives. A woman in a frayed dye with blossoms embroidered along the hem. A soldier still in his rust-streaked uniform. A child clutching a cracked porcelain doll. Their faces blurred at the edges, not fully formed, as though they hadn't decided yet whether they were real. As they passed Min, he felt the cold radiating from them, a deep, freezing cold that sank past his skin. His breath fogged the air. He clenched his fists to stop them from shaking. The new passengers slid into empty seats without a word, but one lingered, an old man with hollow cheeks and eyes too sharp to belong to a corpse. He paused in the aisle, his gaze locking with Min's. Min forced himself not to look away. The man's lips twisted into something like a smile. Then he leaned close, his voice no more than a brittle whisper. "Why are you sitting with the living?" Min's pulse hammered in his ears. He opened his mouth to reply, but no words came. The man didn't wait. He turned, slid into a seat 2 rows back, and sat as still as stone. The doors shut on their own. The driver shifted the gears, and the bus lurched forward again. Swallowed by fog, Min pressed himself against the window, desperate for any distraction. Outside, he saw nothing but the same endless haze. Yet just for a moment, the mist parted to reveal a dark shape standing alone by the roadside. A man, tall and broad, waving frantically. Min leaned closer, his heart catching. The man's outline was sharp, alive, not like the faded passengers. But the bus didn't slow. The figure pounded invisible fists against the fog, his mouth open in a silent scream. Then the haze swallowed him again, gone as if he had never existed. Min turned back, sweat dampening his temples. The silence was worse now. Every passenger sat unnaturally rigid, their heads all facing forward, their hands folded neatly in their laps. The new arrivals blended seamlessly with the old, indistinguishable now. But Min noticed something else. The parchment scrap he had dropped earlier was gone. In its place, tucked between the seat cushions, was another message. His fingers trembled as he pulled it free. At every stop, some board. At every stop, some leave. Pray you are not called next. Min's stomach twisted. His gaze swept the rows, searching for anyone who might have disappeared. At first, everyone seemed accounted for. But then he saw it. The man in the broad-brimmed hat, the one who had spoken to him before, was gone. His seat sat empty, as if he'd never been there. Min gripped the note tighter. The bus creaked as it rolled on. The driver's voice finally broke the quiet. Every stop has its price. Someone pays, someone trades places. Min swallowed. Where did he go? The driver chuckled low. Where we all go eventually. Min pressed a hand to his chest, his breathing sharp and uneven. His reflection in the window stared back at him, pale and drawn. For a heartbeat, the reflection didn't mimic his movement. Tip smiled, slow and cruel, while his real lips stayed frozen. He jerked back, heart slamming. The glass showed only his own terrified face again. But the echo of that smile lingered in his mind, taunting. The bus rattled over unseen roads. Min felt the weight of every pair of eyes, alive or not, pressing against him. He didn't know how many more stops there would be, or whether he'd still be sitting here when the bus finally reached its end. In the back of his mind, a cruel little thought whispered, "Can you guys get out of this ride alive?" The bus groaned like a wounded animal as it rolled deeper into the fog. Min gripped the metal pole beside his seat, trying to steady both his body and his racing thoughts. The new passengers sat frozen, statues carved of ice and silence. The old man who had whispered to him earlier hadn't moved at all, yet Min felt his gaze prickling against the back of his neck. Then came the bell. A deep clang rang through the bus, too heavy to belong to any ordinary stop bell. It reverberated through the floorboards, shivering the seats, rattling Min's teeth. He clamped his hands over his ears, but the sound wormed its way inside his skull anyway. The driver didn't announce a stop. He didn't even slow, but Min noticed something strange. Everyone else bowed their heads at the sound, like worshippers at some dark ritual. Every single passenger lowered their gaze, their shoulders slumping, their lips moving in some silent chant. Min stayed upright, confused, his heart pounding. Then he felt it like invisible strings tugging at his spine, urging him to bow to. For a second, he almost did, his body bending against his will, but sheer panic held him stiff. He clenched his jaw, forcing himself upright, as sweat trickled down his temple. The bell faded into silence. One by one, the passengers raised their heads again, their faces expressionless. Only the child still moved, rocking her cracked porcelain doll back and forth, its glass eyes staring straight at Min. He shivered. The driver finally spoke, his voice gravelly, almost amused. Every midnight toll demands something, a memory, a soul, a name. Min leaned forward, desperate for answers. What happens if you don't give it anything? The driver's shoulders shook with laughter. You'll find out soon enough. Min's hands trembled. He dug into his pocket, pulling out his phone. The screen blinked to life, but the clock was wrong. It didn't show the time. Instead, it displayed a single word, pay. The letters pulsed red, in rhythm with the echo of the bell. Min almost dropped the phone. When he looked again, the word was gone, replaced by the normal lock screen. His mouth went dry. Outside, the fog parted briefly, and he glimpsed something impossible, a row of toll booths rising from the mist. Crooked wooden frames with skeletal arms that stretched out like barriers. Inside each booth sat figures in robes of tattered black, their skull-like faces grinning beneath hoods. As the bus passed, the booths dissolved back into fog, leaving nothing behind. The driver muttered, almost to himself, "The toll has been marked." Min wanted to demand what that meant, but before he could speak, a scream tore through the bus. It came from the soldier, the one in the rusted uniform. He jerked upright, clawing at his chest, as if something were being ripped out of him. His mouth opened wide, but no sound came now, just a thin stream of glowing light that poured from between his lips, drifting upward like smoke. His body shook violently, then slumped lifeless in the seat. The light swirled once, then vanished into the ceiling. The passengers didn't react. They stared forward, blank. The only movement came from the child, who whispered to her doll. Another one paid. Min's stomach turned. He pressed his hands against the seat, trying not to be sick. He wanted to look away, but his eyes kept dragging back to the soldier's corpse. It sat stiff, but its eyes were wide open, staring straight at Min. Only now they weren't blank. They were burning. A thin red glow flickered in the sockets, like embers hidden in ash. The corpse blinked. Min lurched to his feet, stumbling into the aisle. No. The driver didn't turn. Sit down. You're disturbing the dead. Min shook his head, his voice breaking. That thing isn't dead. But even as he said it, the soldier sagged again, the glow fading. Just a husk, or so it seemed. Something brushed Min's ankle. He froze. Slowly, he looked down. A pale, skeletal hand was reaching out from beneath the seat, gripping his shoe. The fingers tightened with unnatural strength. Min kicked free, stumbling backward, his heart hammered in his chest. The other passengers hadn't moved, hadn't reacted. It was like none of them had seen it. The old man 2 rows back finally lifted his head. His hollow eyes gleamed faintly in the dim light. "You're marked now," he rasped. "The toll knows your name." Min's throat locked. He couldn't breathe. He dropped back into his seat, clutching the scrap of parchment he still carried. His eyes flicked to it, desperate for answers. This time, new words had appeared. "At the next stop, it will be you." He crushed the paper in his fist. The bus rattled on, carrying him deeper into the fog. "Can you guys get out of this ride alive?" The bus rattled, every bolt and screw groaning as though the whole thing were being held together by the fog itself. Min sat stiff in his seat, knuckles white around the crumpled parchment in his hand. The words burned in his mind. "At the next stop, it will be you." He swallowed hard, forcing himself to breathe. Around him, the passengers still sat in their eerie silence, faces empty, eyes fixed on nothing. The soldier's corpse hadn't been moved. Its chin sagged against its chest now, the faint ember glow gone. But Min didn't trust it. He kept glancing over, expecting it to twitch again. The bell hadn't rung since. That silence felt worse than the sound itself. Then, movement. The old man who had warned him earlier finally rose. His joints creaked as he shuffled down the aisle, his steps slow, deliberate. The other passengers didn't look at him, but Min felt a sharp ripple of dread in the air, like the atmosphere itself shifted to watch. The old man stopped at Min's row, placing one gnarled hand on the seat back. His face was gaunt, his eyes like black glass marbles. Yet when he spoke, his voice was more alive than anyone else's. "You're not supposed to be here." Min's breath caught. He forced himself to whisper, "What do you mean?" The old man leaned closer, his breath cold against Min's ear. "This bus doesn't carry the living." Min froze. His heart slammed against his ribs. Too real, too loud to believe otherwise. "I am alive," he said, his voice trembling. "I'm not." The old man shook his head, cutting him off. "You're alive? Yes, but once you boarded, you belong to this route. Every midnight, the toll collects. Every stop, someone pays. Tonight, your name has been called." Min's skin prickled. His grip tightened on the parchment. The words etched on it, feeling heavier now, carved into fate. "Then, how do I get off?" he demanded, keeping his voice low. The old man's eyes darted to the front of the bus, then back. He lowered his tone to a rasp. "There is one way. You must give the bus something greater than yourself. A story strong enough, impossible enough, to fool the toll." Min blinked. "A story, that's what. Some kind of spell." The man's lips twisted into something between a smile and a grimace. "Not a spell, a bargain. This place feeds on tales on memory, fear, longing. If you can tell it something it has never heard, you might buy yourself another stop." Before Min could reply, a hiss cut through the aisle. The little girl was standing now, her cracked doll clutched tight to her chest. She stared directly at Min, her lips curling into a grin far too wide for her face. "You shouldn't tell him," she whispered. Her voice was soft, but somehow it carried through the whole bus. "The toll doesn't like cheaters." The old man stiffened. His hand trembled on the seat back. He didn't look at her, but Min saw the fear in his face. The girl tilted her head, humming a tuneless melody as she stroked her doll's hair. Then she sat back down, eyes never leaving Min. The old man leaned closer again, hurried now. 3 stories. That's what it will take. But they must be impossible. Lies strong enough to feel true. His bony fingers tapped Min's fist, where the parchment lay crumpled. "If you fail, you won't just pay. You'll ride forever." Min's throat was dry. He thought of the soldier. The glowing light ripped out of him. He thought of the toll booths, of the skeletal hands reaching for his ankle. He thought of the parchment's warning. 3 impossible stories. Could he even think of one? The bus shuddered as it hit a bump, jolting Min against the seat. He looked up and saw through the grimy window a shape moving alongside the bus dot. At first, he thought it was another vehicle. But no, it was a figure running, keeping pace with the bus, though its legs moved in jerks, like a puppet on tangled strings. Its face was turned toward Min, pale and eyeless, its mouth stretched in a soundless scream. Min squeezed his eyes shut. When he opened them again, the figure was gone. The old man's voice cut in softly, urgently. "Tell your stories soon. When the bell tolls again, you must be ready." Min turned toward him. "Why are you helping me?" For the first time, the man looked uncertain. His mouth twitched, his gaze sliding away. "Because once, someone tried to help me, and I failed." With that, he shuffled back toward his seat, his head lowered. Min sat frozen, the weight of his heartbeat filling the silence. 3 impossible stories, 1 chance. But before he could even begin to think, the bus groaned again, the lights flickered, and from the ceiling, he heard the faintest sound of chains dragging. Somewhere deep in the bus's shadowed corners, something laughed. "Can you guys really make it through another toll?" The chains dragged across the roof of the bus like someone pulling anchors through gravel. Min pressed himself into the corner of his seat, gripping the parchment tighter than ever. His chest rose and fell in shallow breaths, each one burning with the weight of the old man's warning. 3 impossible stories. The lights flickered once more, and then dimmed to a sickly amber glow. Shadows stretched across the aisle like living fingers. That was when the whispering began. It wasn't one voice. It was dozens, maybe hundreds, layered over one another. The sound filled the air, seeping into Min's skull, crawling under his skin. Some voices were shrill, like nails on glass. Others were guttural, like beasts gnawing at bones. They didn't speak words he could understand, yet the meaning pressed against his thoughts anyway. They were hungry. They wanted him. He clapped his hands over his ears. It didn't help. The voices slipped through the cracks of his mind. One word echoed clearer than the rest. "Pay," across the aisle. The little girl sat with her doll. Her lips weren't moving, but Min realized the whispers grew louder when her eyes fixed on him. She smiled, and the doll's head tilted, as if listening. He couldn't take it. "What do you want from me?" Min shouted, his voice breaking. The whispers fell silent at once. The sudden absence was worse than the noise. Then the soldier's corpse moved. It was only a twitch at first, the slightest jerk of a finger, but then the head rolled back, the eyes glowing faintly red again. Its jaw snapped open with a dry crack, and from within came not a scream, but a whisper louder than thunder. "Tell us your story." Min recoiled, bile rising in his throat. He wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. The aisle stretched forever, the exit doors unreachable. Shrouded in fog even inside the bus, the old man turned in his seat, his hollow eyes glinting. "This is your chance. Tell one now." Min's mind raced. Impossible stories. They wanted something they hadn't heard before. His heartbeat roared in his ears, but he forced his mouth open. The words stumbled out. "I once walked into a church at midnight, and found every pew filled with shadows. They turned to look at me, but none had faces, only mirrors, polished and shining. When I looked into them, I didn't see myself. I saw everyone I've ever wronged, staring back." The whispers surged, growing excited. The soldier's corpse let out a rattling hiss, as if drawing the story into its hollow lungs. The parchment in Min's hand heated, glowing faintly. When he opened his fist, new words had scrawled themselves across it. One told. His chest tightened with a flicker of hope. It had worked. But the whispers didn't stop. They swirled louder, demanding more. Min swallowed hard. His mind scrambled for another. His tongue moved before he could think. "I once followed the sound of my own footsteps through a forest, but the steps didn't belong to me. They led me to a clearing where my body was already hanging from a tree, swaying in the wind." The bus shuddered violently, as though struck by something unseen. Several passengers jerked as if woken from a trance, then slumped again. The child clapped her hands together once, her smile sharp. The parchment glowed brighter. "Two told." Min felt dizzy. His breath came ragged, sweat pouring down his face. One more. He needed one more, but his thoughts blurred. Panic clawed at his throat. Every time he tried to imagine something, the whispers filled it with dread, with images of death and torment. He was losing control. Then he saw it again, movement outside the window. The fog parted, and there was that figure running beside the bus. But this time, there were dozens of them. Pale, eyeless figures sprinting alongside, their mouths stretched open in eternal screams, their hands clawed at the glass, leaving no mark. Yet Min swore he felt their nails scrape his skin. And suddenly, the third story came to him. "I once woke up on a bus. This bus, every face was mine. Every passenger stared at me with my own eyes, their mouths whispering my name. And when I screamed, they laughed, because the driver was me, too." The bus lurched violently, the wheels screeching as though grinding against bones instead of asphalt. The soldier's corpse convulsed, its glowing eyes flaring before bursting into smoke. The whispers shrieked, then collapsed into silence, leaving only the pounding of Min's heart. The parchment burned hot in his palm. He opened his fist. 3 told. For a moment, he let out a shaky breath. Relief flooded through him. He had done it. He had paid with stories, not his soul. but then new words bled across the parchment, blotting out the old ones. Stories by time, not freedom. The relief curdled into horror. The old man lowered his head, voice a rasp. Now, you've bought yourself one more toll. Outside, a bell began to toll again, and deep in the fog, something unseen stirred awake. Do you really think stories will save you tonight? The bell's toll rolled through the fog like iron chains dragged across stone. Each strike rattled the glass of the bus windows, and with every peal, the world outside shifted further away from reality. But Min clutched the parchment to his chest, his knuckles white. The words still burned on its surface. Stories by time, not freedom. His mouth went dry. He had given them 3 stories, yet the whispers had only grown hungrier. The old man leaned closer, his bony hand gripping the seat in front of him. You paid, yes, but only enough to cross one river. The tollmaster is greedy. There are always more rivers. The little girl giggled, swinging her doll by its neck. One toll is never enough. Didn't you know? Min's head spun. He wanted to shout at them, to demand answers. But the bell tolled again, drowning every thought in its dreadful rhythm. Bong. This time, the soldier's body crumpled into ash, the remnants scattering along the aisle as though erased from existence. In its place, a new figure slumped into the seat, an old woman with hollow cheeks, her face hidden behind a veil of black lace. She did not move, did not breathe, yet her presence suffocated the air around her. The whispers returned, not as many voices now, but deeper, heavier, as though echoing from caverns beneath the earth. Another toll, the voices demanded. Min squeezed his eyes shut, his chest burned with panic. I don't have anything else to give. The bus groaned, slowing as though struggling against invisible chains. The passengers who had remained still until now stirred faintly, their heads lifting in jerks, as though waking from the grave. One by one, they began to chant in perfect unison. Another toll, another toll, another toll. Min pressed himself against the seat, trembling. His throat was raw. What do you want from me? More stories. The old man shook his head slowly. No, the toll changes with every crossing. Stories bought you time, but the second toll. He looked down at his skeletal hands. Always takes flesh. Min's blood ran cold. The veiled woman stirred at last. Her hands emerged from beneath her black shawlong, brittle fingers tipped with nails like shards of glass. She extended them toward Min without rising from her seat. The doll in the little girl's hands snapped its head to the side with a crack. As though agreeing, Min staggered to his feet. No, I won't. The parchment in his hand pulsed violently, burning his palm. New words carved themselves across the page, glowing with heat. Give flesh, or the bus will never move again. The windows began to darken, black fog pressing against the glass like ink. The aisle warped, stretching longer, the driver's shadow at the far end, shrinking further into the distance. Min's knees buckled. His heart raced, hammering against his ribs. He had survived the whispers, the stories, but this was different. The old man leaned closer, his voice low. Better a finger than a soul. Choose quickly, boy, or you will have nothing left to bargain with. The veiled woman's hand reached further. Her nails scraped against the air, leaving faint glowing trails, as though cutting reality itself. Min's breath came in ragged gasps. His thoughts spiraled. He looked down at his hand, the hand clutching the parchment. What good was flesh compared to his life? His lips trembled as he whispered, I can't. The bus shuddered violently. Every passenger turned their hollow faces toward him, their eyes burning faintly red. The chant grew louder, shaking the metal frame. Another toll, another toll. The child's doll opened its mouth, and this time, the voice was not hers, but the tolling of the bell itself, booming from its stitched lips. Pay. Min screamed, raising the parchment above his head. The words on it writhed, glowing like molten iron. He didn't think, he only acted. He bit down hard on his lip, then slammed the edge of the parchment against his finger. The paper was sharper than any blade. His scream tore through the bus as blood spattered the floor. His fingertip dropped onto the parchment, vanishing into its glow like a stone sinking into water. Instantly, the whispers stopped. The veiled woman lowered her hand. The bell silenced. The bus roared back to life, lurching forward with sudden speed. Outside, the fog peeled back, and for a fleeting moment Min saw the road again, though it stretched into an endless horizon of black stone. The parchment cooled in his hand. When he dared to look, it bore a single new line, paid in flesh. Crossing granted. He collapsed back into his seat, clutching his bleeding hand, his chest heaving. He had survived again, but only barely. The old man chuckled dryly, though his eyes held no mirth. 2 tolls. You've done well. Few make it this far. Min turned to him, tears stinging his eyes. How many more? The little girl hugged her doll tight, her smile wide and cruel. As many as it takes. The bus plunged deeper into the fog, its wheels screaming against unseen ground. In the distance, the bell began to stir again, and Min knew the 3rd toll was coming. The silence after the 2nd toll was worse than the noise. Min pressed his bleeding hand against his jacket, trying to slow the flow. The parchment, now cool and still, lay heavy in his lap like a debt already counted. The bus surged ahead, tires groaning as if grinding over bones. Beyond the windows, the fog shifted, taking on strange shapes, arches, bridges, silhouettes of towers that dissolved the moment he tried to focus on them. Each glimpse felt like looking into places he should never see. The old man cleared his throat, a sound like sand scraping metal. Your flesh brought you one more crossing. But do you hear it? Min froze. Somewhere beneath the hum of the engine, a faint thud echoed. Not the bell, not yet, but something heavier. Like a heart too large for the chest it beat inside. The little girl clapped her hands. The 3rd toll. The 3rd toll. She sang the words as if it were a playground rhyme, her doll swinging wildly in her grip. Its stitched eyes glimmered faintly in the dim light. Min's breath hitched. What? What is it this time? Another piece of me. The old man's face tightened. The 3rd toll doesn't ask for flesh. What then? Min demanded, his voice breaking. The old man looked away, as though ashamed. Memory. It takes what makes you, you. The heartbeat outside the bus grew louder, vibrating the glass. The air felt heavy, pressing down on Min's chest until he could hardly breathe. The veiled woman stirred again, though she did not look at him. Instead, she pointed to the parchment, which began to smoke faintly. New words carved themselves across it in jagged letters. Memory for passage. Give or remain forever. Min's hands trembled. His mind raced. What would it mean to lose memory? He thought of his childhood, his mother's laughter as she braided his hair, the warmth of summer afternoons, the stupid jokes his friends used to tell late at night. Could he surrender that? The bus jolted violently, throwing him against the seat. Passengers stirred. Hollow eyes turned toward him, one after another. Their mouths opened in unison, releasing not words but echoes of his own voice, his own memories, repeated back to him. Don't climb too high, Min, you'll fall. Look, Dad, I drew this just for you. Promise me you'll never forget tonight. His stomach churned. They were stealing his past already, nibbling at the edges. The little girl leaned closer, her grin wide enough to split her cheeks. Give them something small, just a scrap. A birthday, maybe. A kiss you don't care about. The old man hissed. Don't listen to her. The tollmaster always hungers. A scrap won't sat him. If you choose wrong, he'll take it all. The heartbeat outside quickened, rattling the frame of the bus. The parchment burned hotter. Choose, choose, choose. Min clutched his head, pain splitting his skull. Images flickered in his mind, faces, places, voices all begging to remain. He tried to hold on, but the harder he gripped, the faster they slipped away. 3 impossible memories rose unbidden. The night sky tearing open to reveal a sea of stars that sang his name. A bus identical to this one, driving through a city made of glass, where every passenger was him at different ages. A door marked with his handwriting, leading to a home he had never lived in, but where he remembered dying. He gasped, clutching his chest. Were these real, or just tricks planted by the tollmaster? The old man's eyes softened. Listen to me, boy. You must decide which memory matters least, or lose them all. Min's heart thundered. Which memory could he sacrifice? His first day at school, his grandmother's lullaby, the taste of his favorite meal. Each one felt like a thread in the fabric of who he was. The bus began to slow. Its engine groaned like a dying animal. Outside, the fog thickened into walls, pressing closer, suffocating the vehicle. The heartbeat turned into a roar. The parchment flashed violently. Final warning. Min's mouth moved before he could think. Take the face of my first love. The words left him like breath in winter, vanishing the moment they escaped. His chest hollowed, his stomach clenched. Something inside him tore loose, leaving a cavern in its place. The parchment cooled, its surface read, memory paid, passage granted. The bus jerked forward again, speeding faster than before. Outside, the fog peeled back to reveal a long, twisted road, lined with crooked lampposts. Each lamp held a glowing eye instead of flame, all watching him. Min slumped against the seat, shaking. He searched his mind for her face, the girl he once swore he'd never forget, but it was gone. The space where her memory should have been was a blank, a wound he could not stop prodding. The little girl sighed, almost disappointed. A shame. That one was sweet. She hugged her doll tighter. But don't worry, there are more tolls to come. The old man reached out, resting his skeletal hand lightly on Min's shoulder. 3 crossings survived. That's more than most, but the road ahead is long. Min closed his eyes, despair crashing over him like a wave. He had lost flesh, and now memory. What would the next toll demand? The bus sped on, the tollmaster's heartbeat fading behind them. But far ahead, faint and inevitable, the bell stirred once more. The wheels of the midnight bus screeched as it climbed onto a new stretch of road, narrow, skeletal, and swaying in the wind. Min pressed his face against the fogged glass, and his stomach dropped. They were no longer on solid ground. The bus had entered a bridge that stretched into forever, vanishing into grey nothingness. No river, no valley, no sky beneath, just emptiness, vast and bottomless, as though the world had been erased. The bridge itself was bone-white, with ribs arched high like the spine of some impossible creature. The driver's hands clenched the wheel. His knuckles were blackened, as if charred, but his grip never faltered. Passengers stirred uneasily. The little girl sang her rhyme again, this time quieter. 1 for the flesh, 2 for the soul, 3 for the memory, 4 for the whole. Her doll's head lolled to one side, stitched grin pulling wider. Min's chest tightened. What does the 4th toll want? He whispered. The old man beside him answered without looking. The 4th toll asks for your name. Min flinched. My name. Without it, you will still walk, still breathe, but you'll never be called, never remembered, not even by yourself. The parchment on Min's lap trembled, faint light bleeding from its edges. New words etched themselves in molten letters: name for passage, refuse, and fall. The bus rattled as if struck by a storm. Outside, shapes began to crawl across the bridge. They slithered from the fog, figures draped in tattered robes, their faces blank, smooth as polished stone. They pressed their hands against the bus windows, leaving frost wherever they touched. Min recoiled. Who are they? Those who lost their names long ago. The old man muttered. Now they wander, trying to steal one from the living. The veiled woman stirred, lifting her face slightly. From beneath her veil came a whisper, thin as smoke. Don't look at them too long, or they will follow you home. Min tried to shut his eyes, but it was too late. One of the faceless pressed its palms against his window. His reflection warped until he no longer recognized himself. A voice, his own voice, echoed inside his skull. Say it. Give it. You don't need it anymore. The parchment fled. The words grew harsher. Name. Now. Min clutched his head, fighting the pull. He tried to anchor himself, repeating in his mind, Min, Min, Min. But with each repetition, the name grew weaker, like sand slipping through fingers. 3 impossible visions struck him in rapid flashes. His name carved in stone on a grave that bore no body. His childhood self screaming silently, mouth open but no sound, no name. A towering figure holding a book filled with every name that ever existed, except his, where the page was left blank. The bus lurched dangerously. The bridge shook, bones rattling as if alive. A roar rose from below, hollow and endless, like the hunger of the abyss. Choose quickly, the old man rasped, or the bridge will claim us all. Min's heart thundered. To lose his name, to forget who he was, to live faceless among the dead. He wanted to scream, he wanted to resist, but the parchment pulsed hotter, searing through his lap like fire. The little girl leaned close, her eyes wide, her voice sing-song. Say it backwards, that way it doesn't hurt as much. Min's lips trembled. H&M. The parchment exploded with light. The bus jolted forward, throwing passengers into their seats. The faceless figures shrieked in silence, retreating into the mist. Min gasped for air. His chest heaved, his mind scrambled. Something was missing, something central, something anchoring. He tried to speak, but when the word formed on his tongue, it slipped away before sound could follow. The parchment cooled. Its verdict: name taken, passage granted. The old man studied him with weary pity. So it begins. Without a name, you'll drift further each mile. Be careful. Shadows feed on the nameless. The little girl giggled, patting his arm. Don't worry, you're still you, just harder to find. Min slumped against the seat, dizzy. His name was gone, erased. He still breathed, still remembered the loss of memory, still felt the sting of his bleeding palm, but he could no longer call himself anything. The bus roared on. The bridge stretched endlessly, ribs arching, eyes glowing faintly from the fog. Passengers whispered in languages Min no longer recognized. The driver's eyes reflected nothing but the abyss. At last, the tolling bell returned. This time, it rang faint and hollow, like metal struck from beneath the ocean. The parchment stirred once more. Prepare. The fifth toll approaches. Min clutched the paper, fear gnawing through him. If the fourth toll had cost him his very name, what could possibly come next? The bridge never ended. The road ahead only grew darker. The endless bridge had no horizon, only fog, ribs of bone arching overhead, and the drumming wheels of the midnight bus. Passengers had grown eerily quiet, their whispers drowned by the faint ringing of a bell. Not the fourth toll. This was the fifth. It tolled like iron striking stone deep underground, each vibration crawling into the marrow of Min's bones. He flinched, clutching the parchment that now throbbed like a second heartbeat. Its surface writhed with new letters. Fifth toll. Cast out your shadow. Min blinked. Cast out my shadow. The old man's voice came low, resigned. A man without a name is already fading. Without his shadow, he ceases to belong anywhere. He cannot live under sun nor candle, for light itself will forget him. The little girl swayed in her seat, stroking her doll's face. Shadows are heavy, you know. They drag you down. Better to let them go. Her stitched doll grinned wider, as if mocking the thought. The veiled woman shifted for the first time in hours. Beneath her thin fabric, two gleaming eyes burned faint gold. Refuse the toll, and the bridge will feed on you instead. It will peel your shadow away one piece at a time. You will watch yourself dissolve until nothing remains. The bell tolled again. The bus rattled, and from the fog outside, figures emerged, not faceless this time, but warped silhouettes, each one twisted into grotesque parodies of the passengers. They were living shadows, untethered, moving with jerks and lurches like broken puppets. Min froze. He saw his own shadow crawling toward the bus, slamming its hands against the glass. Its movements were delayed, as though it replayed everything he did, a second too late. Its mouth opened his mouth, but no sound came. The parchment seared hotter, forcing his fingers open. Relinquish it. Let it go. 3 impossible visions flooded Min's mind, standing in bright daylight. But his body cast no shadow. He looked less than human, invisible where light should fall. His own shadow strangling him in bed, whispering every secret thought he'd ever had. A procession of nameless, shadowless travelers drifting endlessly through barren plains, unseen, untouchable, forgotten even by death. The old man clutched his chest, his own shadow pressed against his skin, trying to pull free. The bridge demands balance. Shadows are weight, and weight is what keeps us anchored. But if you yield it, his voice cracked, you'll never be anchored again. The bus jerked, throwing sparks as if the tires scraped bone instead of road. The passengers gasped. The faceless from before returned, reaching through the windows, grabbing at the writhing shadows outside. A war of shapes began, ink-black hands tearing, twisting, swallowing whole. Min pressed his head against the seat. His breath shook. If he gave up his shadow, would he still be himself? Or would he drift, unmoored, unable to belong in any world? The little girl leaned closer, her eyes round and unblinking. Don't fight it. It hurts worse if you fight. Just let it peel away, like taking off your skin after sunburn. She giggled, teeth too sharp for a child. The veiled woman's whisper slithered across the aisle. Do not mistake this toll for mercy. You are being hollowed. Can you stand when nothing of you remains? The bus groaned. The shadow of Min on the glass pounded harder, eyes wide, lips moving with words he couldn't hear. Then, suddenly, he understood, not through sound, but through the vibration in his bones. Keep me, and I will protect you. For a fleeting moment, Min felt warmth in the dark shape. It was his companion, his proof of existence. To lose it was to sever his tether. But the parchment shrieked with light. Release, Min cried out, his voice raw. I don't want to. The bell tolled again. The final time, the glass shattered. His shadow surged through the window, colliding with him in a violent rush. He felt his chest tear open, but no blood came. Only black smoke poured out. His vision blurred as the shadow peeled from his heels upward, ripping itself free like fabric tearing from skin. He screamed. The bus tilted. Passengers clawed at their seats. Shadows tore free everywhere. Men, women, even the doll's stitched grin ripped loose and hovered like ink in water. The bus thundered forward, leaving the crawling shadows writhing on the bone bridge. Clawing after the vehicle with silent agony, Min collapsed in his seat. Sweat drenched him, but when he glanced down, there was nothing beneath his body. No shadow, not even in the dim lantern light of the bus. The parchment glowed cold, words carved deep, shadow cast away. Passage granted. The old man stared at him, pale, trembling. You've done it, but now, you'll never find warmth again. Sunlight will not recognize you. Fire will not comfort you. Even death may not take you. The little girl tilted her head, her doll sagging limply. It's better this way. You're lighter now, easier for the bridge to carry. Min pressed his shaking hands together, his chest hollowed with a strange absence, as though something fundamental had been carved from him. He no longer felt weight behind his movements. Every gesture was too smooth, too effortless, like his body was slipping from reality. Outside, the fog shifted, and for the first time, he saw a break in the bridge ahead, a gate of jagged ribs, glowing faintly with green fire. Beyond it, only darkness. The bus roared toward it, unrelenting. The parchment pulsed once more. Prepare. The sixth toll comes soon. Min's eyes burned. He no longer had a name. He no longer had a shadow. What more could they strip away before nothing remained? The bus thundered toward the greenlit gate, passengers silent except for their breathing. Each toll was leaving them less human. Each toll was unmaking them, and somewhere deep within, a voice whispered, "Can you guys get out of this? Or is this already the end?" The bus rattled forward, iron groaning as though it knew where they were heading. Min sat slumped, his hands trembling in his lap. No name, no shadow. He could still breathe, but with each exhale, he felt lighter, less tethered, as though a strong wind might scatter him like ashdot. The gate loomed ahead. Jagged ribs curved together like the maw of a beast, glowing faintly with green fire. The flames didn't flicker like normal fire. They hung frozen in the air, as if painted onto the fog itself. The tolling bell sounded again, this time not behind them, but within the gate. Sixth toll. The parchment in Min's lap quivered, its words scrawling violently across the surface. The green gate demands memory. Yield or be consumed. Min's breath caught. Memory. The old man shifted beside him, his face pale as bone. Yes, to pass, you must give them what anchors you, your memories. Without them, you are nothing but a husk, wandering in circles. The little girl sang softly to her doll, her voice distant. 1 for the flesh, 2 for the soul, 6 for the stories you'll never know. The veiled woman finally raised her face fully, though her veil still shrouded her. Her eyes glowed like dying embers. Refuse, and you will burn until even pain cannot remember you. The bus slowed. The gate yawned wider. The green fire reflected in every passenger's eyes. They stared, hollow, resigned, as if they had all already given in. Min clutched his head. His memories, his mother's voice calling him for dinner. The smell of rain-soaked dirt. His first time boarding this cursed bus were his only thread of proof that he was real. To lose them was to unravel completely. The parchment pulsed. Choose. 3 impossible visions erupted in Min's mind, sharp and suffocating, a vast library of books, each one labeled with his life's moments, his first laugh, his first scar, his last dream, burning page by page until only smoke remained, a mirror reflecting him as a child, reaching out desperately, before the reflection shattered into dust, a corridor where endless versions of himself wandered, all blank-faced, whispering in unison, "Who am I?" The old man groaned, clutching his temples. His eyes glazed over. "They've started already. They're taking from me." His voice cracked. "I can't remember my daughter's name. I had a daughter, didn't I?" The bus shuddered. Passengers sobbed, muttered, or fell into silence. Shadows no longer clung to them. Names no longer passed their lips. Memory was the last tether, and it was fraying. Min squeezed his skull as if he could trap his memories inside. The parchment flared, searing his skin. Yield or burn. The green flames grew brighter, licking through the windows now, crawling across the floor like liquid light. Min gasped as they touched his shoes. They didn't burn, not like normal fire. Instead, they pulled at him, tugging loose details from his mind. His first pet's name, the street he grew up on, his favorite lullaby, gone. He slammed his fist against the parchment. You can't take them. The little girl giggled, stroking her doll. Don't fight. It's easier if you let go. Memories are heavy. You'll feel lighter without them. The veiled woman's voice slithered through the chaos. Every toll empties you, but an empty vessel can carry far more, until it cracks. The old man began to sob, staring blankly out the window. I don't know who I am anymore. Min tried to hold on. He tried to lock one memory inside his mother's face, her hands braiding his hair, the warmth of her hug. He screamed, forcing the image into his heart, but the parchment hissed, its words rewriting. Selective offering permitted. Choose what to keep, yield the rest. Min gasped. He could choose, he could keep something, but what? The green flames clawed higher, licking his chest. They burned away faces, sounds, smells. His mind felt hollowed, scraped raw, but he clutched that one memory, his mother's face, her embrace, her warmth, and refused to let it go. With a roar of defiance, Min shouted into the fire, "Take everything else, just not her." The parchment burst with searing light. The flames shrieked, recoiling, and then vanished into the fog. The bus jolted forward, passing through the green gate. The glow died behind them, swallowed by the mist. Min collapsed into his seat, panting. His mind was a blur of empty spaces, like a ruined library with shelves torn bare. Only one book remained, the memory of his mother's embrace. The parchment cooled, words etched across it in finality. Memory tithe, passage granted. The old man stared at him, eyes hollow. I can't remember what I lost, but I feel it. The emptiness. It's worse than hunger. The little girl tilted her head, doll sagging in her lap. You're lighter now, easier to carry. The veiled woman's eyes glowed faintly, studying him. You've made your choice, but every choice has weight. Even the memory you kept will cut you in the end. Min swallowed hard. He felt unmoored, hollow, drifting. He had no name, no shadow, and now only a single memory left to cling to. How much more could the tolls demand before there was nothing left at all? The bus rumbled on. The fog grew denser, the bridge narrower, and from the abyss below rose a sound, deep, guttural, hungry. The parchment stirred again. Prepare. The seventh toll comes soon. Min stared out into the fog, dread coiling in his chest. If the sixth toll had cost him nearly everything, what could the seventh possibly strip away? And in that silence, one thought whispered in his hollowed mind, can you guys survive when there's nothing left to take? The bus wheels screeched as though grinding against stone, even though the bridge beneath them was smooth as glass. Min clutched the railing, his knuckles white. His chest heaved, but his breaths felt strange to shallow, to hollow. The loss of his memories left behind a cavern, an echo chamber where thoughts bounced but never settled. Fog pressed tighter against the windows, but this fog wasn't grey. It was black, heavy, like tar smeared across the glass. Every few seconds, a face pressed against it, distorted, eyeless, mouths wide in soundless screams. Then they'd melt back into the dark. The bell tolled. Seventh toll. The parchment in Min's lap bled fresh words. The hollow ones rise. Do not look directly into their eyes. Do not answer when they speak. Min's heart slammed. Who are they? He whispered, his voice shaking. The old man hunched in his seat, his eyes vacant. Not who. What's left? People who gave up everything, memory after memory, until nothing remained. Now they wander as echoes, hungry to borrow what others still carry. His voice dropped lower, ragged. They will try to wear you like a mask. As if on cue, a sound seeped in. At first, it was just the creak of the bus, the hum of the wheels. Then came whispers layered, overlapping, too many voices at once. Min's ears throbbed. He heard his own voice among them. Help me, let me in, please. Just one memory, just your name. The little girl stroked her doll eyes locked on the floor. Don't answer. Don't even think about answering. They'll crawl inside the thought and stretch it wide until you're gone. The veiled woman's hands twisted in her lap, her veil rippling though there was no wind. The hollow ones are desperate, but desperation is sharp. It cuts cleaner than hunger. Outside, the tar fog parted. Dozens of figures emerged, clinging to the bridge's edge. Their bodies were bent wrong, limbs too long, necks craned like broken dolls. Their faces were smooth hollows where eyes should have been. their mouths open, oozing shadow. One slammed its hand against the bus window. The glass rattled, the hollow face pressed close, whispering words Min couldn't quite catch. His stomach lurched until he realized the whisper was the exact tone of his mother's voice. "Min, it's me. Don't you remember me? Don't forget me again. Open the window, let me in." Min squeezed his eyes shut. His one remaining memory, his mother's embrace, burned like a coal in his chest. Could this thing be her? No, it couldn't. But the voice, 3 impossible images stuttered through his hollowing mind. A train car where every seat was filled with duplicates of himself, each turning hollow-eyed, whispering his mother's lullaby in unison. A reflection of him in the window, grinning with a face full of black smoke, asking softly, "Why don't you let me wear you?" A memory of his mother suddenly shifting, her face collapsing into a blank void as she whispered, "I am nothing, so will you be?" The bus shook as the hollow ones clawed at its sides, scraping nails across the metal, trying to pry the doors open. The whispers grew louder. The old man's body trembled violently. "I can hear her. My wife. She's calling me." His eyes glazed. "She wants me back." "No." Min grabbed his arm, shaking him. "It's not her. It's a trick." But the old man lurched forward, clawing at the window latch. The moment his fingers brushed the glass, a hollow hand shot through too long. Too sharp hand wrapped around his wrist. The veiled woman snapped her head up. Her eyes blazed like burning coals. "Don't look at them." But Min couldn't stop. His gaze met the hollow figure's face. It had no eyes, yet somehow it saw him. Something shoved its way into his head, a cold, rushing emptiness. He felt the memory of his mother flicker, sputter, nearly die. He screamed, slamming his forehead against the glass. Pain shot through him. The vision broke. The hollow one shrieked, recoiling back into the fog. The bus doors buckled, bending inward. The hollow figures pushed, clawed, and shrieked silently. Min's ears bled with the weight of their whispers. The little girl dropped her doll. It hit the floor with a dull thud. Her voice, small but steady, filled the chaos. "Cover your ears. Don't let their words plant roots." Min clamped his hands over his ears, though the whispers still wriggled through, crawling under his skin. "We can make you whole. Give us what you kept. Give us your mother." "No," Min shouted, his voice breaking. "You can't have her." The parchment writhed like a living thing, glowing red-hot. New words scrawled violently. "Sacrifice required. The hollow ones will not relent. Choose another offering." The veiled woman's gaze fixed on him, fire burning in her sockets. "It must be done. They will consume us all unless someone pays the toll." The bus rocked harder. The old man screamed as a hollow hand sank through his chest, yanking free a shimmer of light, his last scrap of memory. His eyes rolled back. He collapsed. Hollow now, a shell with nothing behind it. The hollow ones shrieked triumphantly, stuffing the glowing shard into their gaping mouths. The bus lurched forward an inch, as though appeased by the offering. Min's stomach dropped. Every toll demanded more. His shadow, his name, his memories and, now, if he wasn't careful, his very soul. The parchment glowed again. "Prepare. The 8th toll approaches. The cost will not be bearable." Min clutched the one memory he had left, tears burning down his hollowing cheeks and deep in his bones. He wondered, could anyone really survive the next toll? Or was the bus simply dragging them toward the moment when they all became hollow ones themselves? Can you guys even imagine holding on to one fragile memory while everything else is clawed away? How do you survive that? The bus shuddered so violently that Min thought the entire bridge might collapse beneath it. The wheels screeched, sparks flying from the undercarriage. A low hum, almost mechanical but too deep to belong to any machine, trembled through the floorboards. Then the bell rang. 8th toll. It was heavier than the others. Each strike of the invisible bell sent a wave of force through the passengers' chests, stealing their breath for a heartbeat. Min felt his ribs compress, as if unseen hands were wringing him out. The parchment flared like fire, and fresh words etched themselves in scarlet. "The 8th toll demands blood. Willingly or not, the offering will be taken." "Blood." The little girl whimpered, clutching her doll to her chest again. The doll's glass eyes seemed to weep black tears, streaking down its face. "It hurts," she whispered. Min didn't know if she meant the toll or something else. The old man's hollow body twitched in the corner, no longer truly alive but not entirely gone. His mouth moved silently, as though still whispering the hollow one's words. Min turned away, bile rising in his throat. The veiled woman finally stood, her movements jagged, as though every bone in her body cracked under the strain. Her veil shimmered faintly with golden edges, but her voice was raw. "It will take one of us," she said. "That is how it always works. One must bleed for the bus to move forward." The fog outside coiled tighter, pressing like an ocean against glass. Black shadows writhed in it, shapes without form, hungry and waiting. Min shivered. "What if we refuse?" he demanded. His voice cracked, but he forced it out. The parchment answered for her. Refusal is not a choice. The toll is law. Min's stomach churned. This bus was no longer simply a vessel, it was alive, ancient, feeding off those trapped inside. Every toll stripped them, piece by piece, until nothing remained but echoes for the hollow ones to devour. The veiled woman stepped closer, her veil swaying as if in an invisible breeze. "If we choose willingly, perhaps we can control it. If not, it will choose for us, and the bus. The bus has no mercy." The little girl's eyes widened. But who? That word lingered like poison. Then, as though summoned by it, 3 impossible visions flickered through Min's mind. A memory of himself seated on the bus, calmly sliding a dagger into his own chest, blood flowing neatly into a golden chalice that appeared from nowhere. The little girl, smiling sweetly as she offered her doll, and from the doll's stitched belly, red liquid pouring endlessly onto the bus floor. The veiled woman lifting her veil to reveal nothing beneath but a gaping wound, blood spilling without end, as if she were the bus itself. Min gasped and grabbed the seat back, steadying himself. These weren't choices, they were threats, possibilities of how the toll could be paid. The bus slowed to a crawl, refusing to move until it had its due. Outside, the hollow ones circled, grinning with mouths too wide, waiting for the sacrifice like wolves waiting for meat. The veiled woman's gaze locked on Min. "You still have something worth bleeding. A memory left, a mother's touch. The bus craves purity. It craves life." "No," Min snapped. His voice trembled, but he forced the word out. "You want me to give up the last thing I have left? That's not survival. That's surrender." The little girl pressed her face into her doll's shoulder. "It doesn't always take everything. Sometimes it just drinks enough to taste." Min's breath hitched. His arms prickled with cold. The parchment burned again. "Spill it, or we will spill it for you." The bus groaned, and suddenly the ceiling cracked. Thin black roots, like veins, stretched down and brushed the tops of their heads. Min flinched, swatting them away, but they burned cold where they touched. Drops of dark fluid fell from them, blood, thick and metallic, but not red. It was black, slick, and it hissed when it hit the floor. The veiled woman reached out with trembling fingers and touched one drop. Her veil quivered. "The bus has chosen. It will not stop until it tastes living blood." Min staggered back. "And you expect me to?" But before he could finish, the old man's hollow body jerked upright. With a grotesque twitch, his chest split open, and a fountain of dark ichor sprayed out. His body convulsed, head snapping back at an unnatural angle. The hollow shell collapsed, but the blood kept flowing, seeping across the bus floor. The bus shuddered, the wheels squealing. It drank. The parchment hissed, words etching themselves in a violent scrawl. "The toll is paid." The bus lurched forward again, groaning as though satisfied. But Min's stomach twisted. That wasn't his blood, or the girl's, or the veiled woman's. The bus had taken what remained of the old man. Hollow though he was, the little girl sobbed softly. "It'll take us one by one, until there's nobody left but shadows." The veiled woman turned toward Min, her voice low, shaking. "And when the 9th toll comes, it won't settle for scraps." Min pressed his hand to his chest, feeling his heart pound, his one memory burning hot in his veins. He knew the veiled woman was right. Each toll climbed higher, hungrier. Soon, it would want something greater than blood. His vision swam, and in the blur of his thoughts, a vague sentence seemed to echo in his skull. "What will you give when blood is not enough?" Min closed his eyes, whispering to himself, though he wasn't sure anyone else could hear. "Can you guys even survive when the bus demands everything, when it doesn't just want what you have, but what you are?" The 9th toll waited ahead like a predator in the dark. The bus's hum deepened until it sounded like the groaning of a buried cathedral. The lights overhead sputtered one last time and went dark, plunging everything into the shadowy blue glow that leaked through the fog outside. Min's breath fogged in the air, though no window was open. The air had grown impossibly cold, thick with the iron tang of blood and something older. F-O-U-L-E-R. The ninth toll. Rang not like a bell now, but like the cracking of the earth itself. The vibration sank into his bones, rattling his teeth, making his vision flicker white at the edges. This time, the parchment didn't flare red. It turned entirely black, smoldering like coal, and then dissolved into ash that floated weightlessly down the aisle. The bus spoke without words. He felt it in his chest. Blood is not enough. The ninth toll demands yourself. Min pressed a trembling hand to the seat rail. He barely managed to whisper, "What does that mean?" But he already knew. The little girl clutched her doll, rocking it as though it were a baby. Her voice came thin, almost far away. "It means you stop being you forever." The veiled woman's veil no longer shimmered with faint gold. It dripped like water, pooling onto the floor and vanishing before it touched the ground. Her hollow eyes fixed on Min. "You are the last passenger who remembers. The bus hungers for memory, identity, soul. You will give it freely, or it will take it." Min shook his head violently, panic rising. "No, there has to be another way. I'm not." His voice broke. He thought of his mother again, the warmth of her hand on his forehead, the sound of her lullaby, the smell of her cooking drifting through a childhood kitchen. It was all he had left, and the bus wanted it. His vision blurred. Shadows crept at the edge of his sight. The hollow ones pressed against the windows, their wide mouths grinning as if they knew the punchline of a cruel joke. The bus slowed. Outside, there was no city anymore, no streets, no lamps, only a vast black plain stretching endlessly, and a single crooked lamppost glowing faintly at the horizon. The driver shifted in his seat, bones cracking. With a slow, deliberate motion, he removed his cap. His face was no longer human. It was a hollow skull, faint blue fire burning in its sockets. The driver turned, grinning at Min. Last stop. The little girl dissolved first, fading like smoke, until only her doll remained, tumbling into the seat with a hollow thud. Then even the doll unraveled into threads that melted into the bus floor. The veiled woman followed, her veil billowing like a sail ripped free in the wind, vanishing into the shadows. Min was alone, the last passenger. He staggered to his feet, shouting, "Why me? Why not them? Why take everything?" His voice cracked into the silence. The bus groaned back. "Because you are the one who remembers. The ride must continue. Memory is fuel. Soul is fuel. You are fuel." The driver extended one skeletal hand, bony fingers curling like hooks. Min's legs weakened. His chest ached, as though his heartbeat had been nailed in place. The final impossible story flickered through his head. He saw himself seated forever on this cursed bus, repeating the ride each night, a ghost whispering to the next fool who boarded. The ninth toll rang again, louder, absolute. His memory of his mother's lullaby ripped from him in an instant. He tried to scream, but his voice no longer belonged to him. His body slumped into the seat, yet he saw himself from the outside. He wasn't Min anymore. He was hollow. The bus purred. Satisfied, it rolled on, wheels spinning over the black plain, toward that crooked lamppost at the horizon. The driver placed his cap back on, skeletal grin fixed forward. Behind him, only one passenger remained. The last passenger, forever. But now, my friends, as the last echoes of the midnight bus fade, it's time to leave that world behind. You've survived the ride tonight, barely maybe, but you're here, still breathing, still listening. So let's soften things a little. Imagine the bus dissolving into mist, the wheels no longer screeching, the tolls no longer striking through your bones. Instead, the air grows warmer, easier. The black plain is gone, replaced with something much simpler, a quiet night sky, full of stars. The kind you almost forget exists until you look up and see how many there really are. The wind isn't cold anymore. It's gentle, carrying only the rustle of trees. You're not sitting on a haunted bus, you're resting somewhere safe, where nothing is hunting you, nothing is asking for your blood or your memories. Just the sound of your own steady breathing, the beat of your heart, reminding you that you are alive. And maybe, just maybe, you hear a lullaby too. Not from a ghost or a curse, but from your own imagination. A simple, gentle tune that tells you it's all right to close your eyes, that the night can be kind, not cruel, that tomorrow will bring light again, and with it, ordinary roads, ordinary buses, and ordinary people going about their lives. So rest easy now. You've traveled far enough for one night. Good night, and sweet dreams.